Okay, we are live. So welcome everybody. My name is Marta. This is Practical Creativity, a show, a program, an exploration where we unpack the creative process so that we can actually put it to use in our lives. So today we are really thrilled to have a very special person, Miss Olga Granda, here with us today to talk a little bit about what she's up to and all the exciting things that are happening in Coral Gables. So Olga, over to you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're up to right now.
Hello, everybody. So as Marta said, my name is Olga Granda, and I am a Miami native. I like to say I've grown up here most of my life, and my professional life has taken different paths, but always in the creative arts world. So I trained to be a classical dancer. I studied religion in college, which is a way of studying many different aspects of the human experience, including the arts. I also studied languages. And then I had a lifetime as an antique dealer, an art dealer, did a lot of historic preservation and design work before kind of jumping ship and jumping into the startup world with a technology startup that involved the antiques and art world. And then circling towards nonprofits and becoming executive director of a theater company. And then most recently last year, founded a nonprofit called the Sanctuary of the Arts, which has two campuses now, has a campus at what is known as the First Church of Christ Scientist in Coral Gables, which is on Andalusia Avenue and Lejeune Road, right across from Coral Gables City Hall. And we've also acquired a church known as St. Mary's First Missionary Baptist Church, which is also in Coral Gables, though in an area most commonly known to the community as the West Grove. So it's on the east side of US 1, just off of Grand Avenue on Fro Avenue. And it is the oldest and only African-American church in Coral Gables proper. And so both locations are undergoing various renovation stages. And the lucky thing for us at this time of quarantine and closure was that we were already kind of in this development phase. So we were not open to the public. And we had committed to doing a pretty extensive master planning process about what our institution and organization should be and should look like, and envisioning a new model for a nonprofit, and not just in how we will operate, but also in wanting to create something that addresses gaps and fills gaps as opposed to just duplicating things that were already going on. So we've been undergoing that process through extensive research. There is a pretty strong community input component that we will slowly get into. We kind of put it on hold when we realized this situation that was happening with quarantine, but we'll probably still go about particularly one-on-one interviews and then hopefully communal input, either being creative through the digital space, or if we feel that it's going to be soon enough, we'll just hold off and hopefully have those meetings over the summer.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And if you all haven't been over to see the spaces, or at least the first space, I don't know if the second one is ready for public view. It doesn't matter right now, right? But definitely the sanctuary, when you walk in, you just feel like you're in the sacred space. So, and that's kind of how it started. So it makes a lot of sense. But take us back to what you were talking about with a master plan. So I've been involved with a couple of master plans, but I think there are probably some people on the stream who might not be familiar with what is a master plan and why do you do it?
Yeah, so I guess I should start by saying that we had established our mission as the Sanctuary being an artist-led institution for the purpose of healing, empowering, and uplifting our community through the arts. And that is a very broad statement. And so, it's easy to make broad strokes, but then there has to be well, how are you going to do it?
Right.
And so a master plan really comes down to that, really comes down to first understanding the landscape and what are the assets of the community, what are the gaps in the landscape that you're going to be working in. We all come into situations with assumptions, and it's really important to actually look for the data and find out, well, is this really true? And so looking at that landscape, having, making an analysis, assessments, conclusions, and then from there saying, okay, well, how do our values and our mission, how are we going to address those issues, that essentially the problems that we're trying to solve.
Right.
And a lot of that is working through, understanding those issues, and then working with our other founders and other collaborators and understanding what the vision is of what Sanctuary is supposed to be. I appreciate that you referenced it feeling like a sacred space. There's elements of our spaces that, will always guide what we do. So the term sanctuary speaks to a place of safety, a place of repose, comfort. And so those are elements that we want to make sure are true. Both of our locations are historically designated buildings that are there from the founding of the city of Coral Gables. And so for us, there's also an importance of honoring that history, and in that element, not just their history specifically, but the fact that we all come to wherever we are because of our histories, whether directly our personal history or our families, our homelands. And so that element of keeping a narrative that is true to history, that is true to place, and that is true to comfort and safety are elements that we care about and talk about a lot.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is master planning is, in the most simplified form, it's a community-focused and mission-driven process that helps you determine how to use the space that you have to best serve the mission and the community. Am I getting that right? Okay,
yeah, absolutely. And then it becomes a roadmap, right? That we intend to always look back on and really use once we're on the go.
Amazing. I love that. So once you're executing and you have your programming, finished, you have your programming kind of set up and ready to go. I have so many things I want to ask you. My brain is just moving forward already. So let's go back to what you were saying about how your own history really shapes how you engage in your own practice. Tell us, you obviously just described to us your very nonlinear and beautiful background. I love that you have been a dancer and an artist for your whole life. And in your career, you've gone into the corporate world, and now you've come into the nonprofit world. How do you, as your own artistic practice and looking at your work as its artistic self, how are you weaving all of those elements together? I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I always hear, people think they have to only do one thing. And for me, that's never been satisfying. So I love it when I talk to other people who have really explored and opened up their careers rather than just focusing on one thing. And that's a beautiful thing, but it's really neat to share that vibrancy in your path. So tell us, just get into that a little bit more with us.
Yeah, I agree with you that a lot of, not just other people, but a lot of components of our culture and society want to compartmentalize and kind of silo things. I mean, really, this moment right now is so unique because a lot of these issues of siloing things are coming to light. And one of the things that has been discussed a lot lately with parents having their kids at home and therefore homeschooling is that we try to differentiate the workplace and family life, and nobody's life is really like that, right? Our lives are everything all the time. And I think that's true about our interests, right? Whether it's our creative interests or our physical health or what we're doing in theory for business, we are all of those things all the time at once. And I think that I've definitely had the luxury of being able to play with those a lot, and I want to continue to do that further. And I want to help other people see it that way too, that we are all of those things at once. Sometimes when I have conversations about this, and I hope you appreciate my lovebirds chiming in here at home. So see, I'm a pet owner too, right? I'm everything.
Perfect.
I find an easy example is at the same time, you're a daughter, you're a sister, you're a cousin, you're a friend, you're all those things at the same time. And so I think that just like that, we should not compartmentalize so much who we think we are, because we're all of those things, and we should be nurturing different aspects of ourselves in the different parts of our lives.
I love that. I was talking to Corey Davis, who is the co-founder and executive director of Maven Leadership Collective, last week, and he was talking a lot about kind of like intersections. And anytime I'm thinking about what are the different slices of your identity. I love what you put, what you just said, because you can't be only one thing all the time. I think he's made me think a lot about like what are the intersections of our different parts of our identity. And I think art is a great way to be very intersectional. Like artists, the way that their minds work is very different from the way a lot of our minds work. So what are the intersections that you see? I know you don't have your programs rolled out yet, but what are the intersections that you see, and maybe how the sanctuary will use artists to help the community come together?
Okay, well, one of our focuses is definitely new work, and making sure that new work has the space to be developed, as opposed to a place that continuously presents work that has already existed in the past. We feel that evolution of creativity is really important to nurture moving forward. Part of breaking down those silos is also making sure that people know that, for example, if you're an audience member, you're not just an audience member, you're still an artist too, and you're creative too, and inviting people in very subtle ways to understand themselves as creative people if they don't already identify themselves that way. And I think in kind of breaking down those titles of, you're coming to see the musician play, he's the musician, you're the audience, and making people feel a little bit more like this is all a community and we're all coming to engage and interact in different ways, is important for part of how we're thinking about modeling things. Another way that we're thinking about how to do things differently has to do with the funding sources of the arts. We've known for a long time that there are challenges in the nonprofit, even the fact that that's how we describe arts organizations, right, as nonprofit, or sometimes, there are, like when I was in the art world, there's commercial versus nonprofit. But, why do organizations identify themselves as to whether or not they make a quote unquote profit? That's very economically driven and using economic language. And it's something, again, that in this moment right now, where so many artists are overnight unemployed because of the current situation, we see, okay, there are challenges here if this is how the system functions. Aside from that, we know that creativity is not linked to economics, in the sense that, people will be creative no matter what, because like you said, you use in reference to a book you were reading, the idea that being an artist is a birthright. Yes, we all have creativity and things that we do that are not linked to whether or not we're being paid to do them at that moment. So the fact that artists have lost their jobs has to do with other economic elements, but that doesn't make them stop being an artist at that moment, right? Or at any moment. And so I think that in general, thinking about new language, about the economics of arts organizations and how we do fund them is something that we feel very moved to think about and to try to change the dynamic. And even, you know, we're even having conversations about, well, what if you don't buy a ticket to see something? What if we call it something else? Because there's this very transactional idea that I feel especially is somewhat contrary to what art is about. And so we're trying to think about how we reframe some of those conversations.
For sure. It's funny, my mentor, Michael Kaiser, who I worked with at the Kennedy Center, he taught me strategic planning. So everything that I know really comes from him and then my own experience out in the world. But one of the things that he used to say, the first thing in teaching people about strategic planning was like, well, if all that defined you is what you're not for, then how do you define success, right? So instead of just talking about what we're not for, going back to Corey, I always thinking about asset framing, like, well, what are we for? You know, what are our values? And I think times like these are particularly important, even though they're very painful, because they really force us to look outside of the structures, to your point, like that we have just blindly, maybe that's okay, but we have not really questioned, and look at those structures and say like, well, if the structure is breaking down, what is left? And for me personally, it's purpose and values. And how you do whatever you do, regardless of whether you're getting paid for it or not, has to do with how you show up in the world, which is your purpose and your values. And I think what you bring up also is very interesting. This has been a theme that's come up time and time again in the 17 days that we've been doing this stream, which is, you know, we're looking to artists right now to help us make sense of this crazy time. We're looking to escape. We're looking to laugh. We're looking to feel uplifted. We're looking to just feel as confused as we might feel and be, you know, sit with that. And sometimes art doesn't make you feel good. It like makes you sit with things that are a little bit uncomfortable. And one of the great things that I really do think is powerful about especially exposing kids to art is that art doesn't have right answers. Art actually is okay with ambiguity. And I think there's something really powerful as adults to kind of sit with that a little bit, because maybe there is no right answer right now. And we're going to learn what the models are by doing some experiments now and then seeing what sticks. I mean, like, we're all on Zoom right now, us included, right? Are we going to be doing that in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years? How will the digital spaces and the digital work that's happening right now impact us when, you know, very much to your point, like going to a place where you can feel healed and you can feel surrounded and you can feel safe? This is something that the arts have always, you know, intended to do, I think. And, you know, some places don't feel that way. They are palaces to the arts, but they feel very intimidating and like, this is not for you. So tell us a little bit about just your response to that and how you think having two now spaces for the arts is going to be important once we're out of this whole COVID thing. Like, what will that mean? And how are you anticipating maybe even looking at doing some digital things that you hadn't before?
So one of the things that came to mind as you were just speaking is just a reminder that artists and the artist way of thinking embraces evolution in a way that maybe other situations are more rigid. Like you were saying, there's no right or wrong the way there is on a math problem, right? And so being okay with that ambiguity and being okay with the fact that the answer might change over time and might frequently feel very uncomfortable is very important to, I think, welcome everybody in, making sure that everybody feels welcome with those sentiments of ambiguity, and that it's a process, right? As opposed to like, now you made it to the stage, now you didn't, versus you didn't. there's this process that is life, which is a progression and evolution. I think that that's an important message in this whole thing. The digital space, I mean, the reality is that I feel like there's been this huge acceleration right now, but a lot of people have been doing, Zoom meetings or Skype or online, remote work for quite some time. There's just now been this acceleration where everybody else has to, who has been slow, to jump on the bandwagon or just this new scenario reality now has pushed everybody into it. For us, we still I haven't wrapped my mind around it because I'm still in that phase of ambiguity and discomfort in understanding how I feel about the digital space and digital learning. And I'm glad that we, for us personally, that we weren't in a situation where we had to figure it out overnight like so many people did. So we have that luxury of having time to think about it and what makes sense and will be right for us when we do open. Certainly even in our renovation process and thinking about the equipment that we have to have, it's been part of the conversation. Well, what kind of connectivity do we need to have moving forward? And that's going to be a reality for everyone, but we haven't quite yet embraced the idea that, we will stream things versus focus on live. We haven't quite decided on the execution level about what it's going to mean. But I think that part of our spaces are such a foundational factor of our organization that it would be hard for us not to continue to be very grounded in those spaces. Both of them geographically have particularities that have to do with their histories, why they're there. Our Andalusia campus being across from City Hall, this element of civic life and a town center is very real and very present there. St. Mary's, with its history of being the only African-American church in its community, and at one point having a membership of 1,500 parishioners, which actually is the record number that the Christian Scientist Church uses also, and they're physically, so one is so much smaller than the other that it's pretty amazing to think like, oh, this church fit just as many people as that other church. But that also shows you that it's about—
We're online. Kidding.
It's about community, right? And spaces are defined in different ways and spaces are used in different ways. There's still a lot for us to answer with those questions, but I think that the idea that we're evolving and we're listening is part of what's important to us for our process right now, and how everyone defines what is a sanctuary at the end of this whole situation, which, we talk about it as if there's going to be a beginning and an end. And again, like, it's probably going to be much more ambiguous than that. And it's probably going to be, a rolling evolution to a new sense of normalcy, which is neither going to be like the one that preceded it, nor is what's happening right now.
I love that you said that, and you said evolution twice. And I think that is such a healthy attitude to actually embrace that at the beginning of something, because in my experience, doing this work with hundreds of organizations, a lot of times what they're looking to do is get the magic formula or to hold on to what's working. They say, like, double down on what's working and let go of what's not. But to your point, some of the model things that are baked in, we're not actually able to let go of. So, but in terms of, oh my gosh, where was I going with that? Anyway, you're starting something new. So that is a really exciting thing. And just, you talked about, some of your own discomfort in sitting in this whole thing of kind of starting something new. Oh yes, evolving. So you're embracing evolution from the beginning. And I think that's going to serve the sanctuary and you really, really well as its leader. Tell us just a little bit more about starting something new with this idea of evolution kind of baked in, how do you know where to start? It sounds like it could be completely overwhelming, especially as you're looking to serve Coral Gables, which is a very well-established city. It has its own culture. You know, how are you tackling this brand new thing and this unknownness while looking toward what you know will evolve?
Yeah, well, so starting anything from scratch is extremely challenging, and I've done it more than once, and I think I'm a sucker for, for punishment, right? Because I keep doing it, but there's something very exciting about starting something from scratch. Like you said, sometimes organizations have a hard time letting go of a formula that they feel like is the thing they should just be doubling down on and duplicating. I do think that it's something that, you know, not everybody is as comfortable evolving as I tend to. I think I tend to be somebody who is a little bit more comfortable with that. That said, I love structure within that. Like everyone, you know, I need certain rituals that guide my life. Otherwise, that it would really be chaos. But how do you know where to start? I think that we're lucky in that we're in this moment in which there's been so much work done over the past few decades, but also recently there's so much research and so much information out there and so many models. I've been very lucky that I've been able to form a team of other, mostly women, or all women, who also have a lot of experience. And so a lot of what we're putting together is the evolution of all of our experiences and a lot of input that we have from those experiences. So I think that learning from others is really vital and important to this whole process, to being open to a process. You know, we joke a lot about the fact that there are very few new ideas, if any, and certainly I believe in collective consciousness. Like the moment you think of something, there are 10 other people in the world that are thinking about that same thing at that moment. And so I think if you're comfortable with that, and you're comfortable thinking like, hey, I have this idea, let me go research and see what other people have done with it. Like we make all of those ideas better by understanding that we are like one out of many who are shifting and evolving into this thing and into this place. So I think that that's something that I rely on a lot, is other people, you know, past work, and then try to use those elements to create what we are hoping will be a new model that can be shared again with others, because this is all about lots of people. This isn't just about us, and can be used and can help the entire ecosystem evolve.
I love that. So I used to work at the New World Symphony, and one of the things that they always say is like, we honor the past and create the future. So that's kind of what I'm hearing when I'm hearing you talk. Like, we are learning from other people, and I agree that there are a lot of ideas that are not totally original, but it is the combination of them that I think is innovation and really change. So this has been an amazing conversation, and it's so great to talk to you. It's so great to see you and to hear your bird. And to I see a little bit of honoring the past in your surroundings too. It's neat to see your personality show up in your space. So I love what I'm hearing about honoring the past, creating the future, really listening to the community, and co-creating almost, and thinking about the role of art in community and creating community. Certainly we've seen evidence of that all sorts of places, within Greater Miami itself. What are your hopes for the future? Not only, you know, starting the sanctuary's active section, which we're not to yet, you're still in your master plan phase, but what are your hopes for the arts in the next year and a half?
I think my hope is that there is this collective understanding that the arts isn't a silo that's separate from anything else, that the arts are a part of our life, the way we eat and drink and do art, right? Do art, consume art, be artists, and be with artists. I think that is my ultimate hope, is that this whole process and people having the arts so prevalent and so prominent in their survival of these challenges, of this challenging time, makes people value the arts in a way that they should have been for a long time, but maybe now we will be more comfortable just naming it like it is, and being comfortable saying, yeah, I need to have breakfast, and I need to listen to this music, and I need to see this thing, and I need to dance a little, to make sure that my overall health is in place, and that includes, and also wash my hands, right, and take my vitamins. But I think that that's, to me, my greatest hope, is that we really understand the value of the arts in our lives in a different way.
I love that. And that brings us kind of to where we started, which is about your values and your purpose. And when you live your values, you show up differently everywhere you show up in life. And I would also like to see that really be a thing where people see the value and they start to own it and take responsibility for valuing the arts in different ways. And maybe that will help us create new models for funding and that kind of thing. I'm very hopeful for that as well. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so much, Olga. It's been so great to talk.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we wish you, oh, thank you. We wish you all the best in your planning phase, and then let us know how to get involved. Where can people find more information about the sanctuary?
So we do have a Facebook page. We haven't been very, posting too often, but I would recommend that you follow us, because once we do become more active, we'll be posting there. So Sanctuary of the Arts. We're on Instagram also as Sanctuary of the Arts. And we have a webpage, which is sanctuaryofthearts.org. So I would say, so you can sign up for our newsletter there, Facebook, Instagram, and just follow us. And you can also follow me personally, Olga Granda, in all those places, LinkedIn, and I'll make sure to hook you into once we have sanctuary stuff.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We'll be listing all of those links in the YouTube page. So much to come. We'll have to follow up and see what's happened in a couple of months. Just hear more about your planning and what else we can do to support what you're up to. So thank you again, Olga. I hope you have a great day.
Bye.